Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Mindset podcast. I'm your host, Sean Michael Crane. And today I got a really special guest. I have Amberly Lago here visiting with me via StreamYard. We're going to do a live interview and I get to ask her some questions. But I met Amberly about 3 years ago. I was out in Texas speaking at, I guess it was like a news broadcasting station. It was kind of like a live in person Q&A. And Amberly was there in the audience and we kind of just started chatting. I think we all went out to dinner that night, actually. And from there, I'd see her speaking at events. I kind of started following her on social media. And I love everything that you represent, Amberly. So, like, for
Mm.
anybody listening to this, if you're somebody that's struggling with any aspect of life and you feel like you're being defeated, you feel like you can't catch a break, you're going through adversity, you don't feel like you have a strong mindset, Amberly is the epitome of strength and perseverance. I mean that. And I've seen her speak at a lot of events and she's very motivational. She's a great leader for men and women, crushes it in business. She's a family woman as well. And we have a lot of the same values, Amberly. So, I'm really, I admire you. I respect you. And I'm grateful you're here to share with us today.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Can I just hang out with you all the time? Can I have you just go around with me all the time and introduce me like that? Because that was so kind.
That
And
was just off the cuff, too.
oh my gosh, but I remember when I met you, it was at Jeff Prilly's studios at Real News PR publication. That's where I do my show now, my podcast now. And you were on Trevor Houston's show. And that's when I learned about you and your book. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing. Like, I instantly was like, oh, I got to be friends with him. Like, I have to know this guy because I just really, really connected with you. And then, yeah, we did a speaking event. I think it was Ken Joslin's event that
Yeah.
we did. And we got
Yeah.
to
I think there was
share the
two of them.
stage, and that was cool.
Yeah, there was 2 of them. I mean, we do have a lot in common. First of all, you're, a two-time author, now a three-time author, right? We'll get into what books you've written. I mean, you sent me a copy of True Grit and Grace, your first book. Me and my wife both read it. Um, and, speaker, author, coach. The cool thing is you have a similar, brand as mine, right? Yours is the Unstoppable Mastermind, correct?
Yeah, is that not wild? Like,
Yeah.
you
We
are
didn't plan
all
this.
about unstoppable, and my mastermind is called Unstoppable. Well, my event is called Unstoppable Success Summit. My mastermind is Unstoppable Life Women Mastermind. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is like weird. Like, you're my brother from another mother.
Yeah, yeah. Real quick for anyone listening, who do you coach and mentor in your mastermind?
Um, I love helping women. You know what? I speak at a lot of events where I'm the only female speaker on stage at event. And I love men. Don't get me wrong. I love you fellas. But I want to see more women having a voice and sharing their story to make an impact and inspire and change lives for other people. So, the mastermind that I have is to really help women learn how to get on more stages, share their message, build their brand, their influence, their impact, so they can make a bigger income. So that's the women that are in my mastermind.
I love that. I love that. And I think you're absolutely right. Um, where should people reach out to you? Is it on Instagram, Amberly Lago Motivation? Is that your Instagram handle?
Yeah, it's Amberly Lago
Okay.
Motivation.
I'll
AmberlyLago.com is
I'll
my
post it
website
in
where you
the
can find
I'll
everything.
post it in the description below too. But if there's anyone that's watching this live or on the replay and listening, if you want coaching, mentorship, if you want to hit those stages, the best thing to do is learn from somebody who's done it, right? And someone who's as passionate about giving back and helping others as Amberly. I mean, that's what helped me so much, Amberly, is learning from people who are in a position that I want to be in. You know, um, a lot of people, they're just kind of scared to speak their truth and be vulnerable and and go for it. When you said you want to empower more women to get on stages and really reach their potential of impact, the first thing I thought about is people are scared to put themselves out there. And then I thought about you and all the things that you've documented and shared that you went through in your life that didn't stop you. So
Mhm.
let's talk about that. Why is it that you, somebody who's been through tons of adversity, and you can get into detail about, the physical challenges you faced, your accident and stuff like that. How have you been able to overcome that adversity and that trauma and be vulnerable on stages, on massive platforms? And like, how can other people start to follow your path in their own way?
Well, you know what? I tell you what, it didn't happen overnight. And it's not something that I had an accident and I thought, well, now I'm going to just share my story. I went through a lot of years of healing, therapy, physically, mentally, spiritually, where I was going through some healing. And so I recommend anybody, and I say this because I believe it to be true for me, is to share from a scar and not an open wound. I had to really heal, and I had that scar and I'm like, okay, now I can share it. But that's where I could begin to share. Um, and so, I've had other people say, "Oh, you don't need to do that. Don't just share what," and I'm like, "No, for me, I was I was like in hiding. I wasn't on social media when I was going through healing after my motorcycle accident and stuff. I wasn't posting on social media. I was taking time to heal myself. And so I think it's really important for people to remember to their mental, physical, spiritual health is important and they have to work on their vitality first. And then you can start to share from a place of what you've learned through everything. That's my experience anyway, how I've learned and how I've only been able to share through my experiences, being able to go through a lot of dirt, a lot of darkness. Honestly, it's
Yeah.
hadn't been easy.
Yeah. No, it's not. And I think what you shared is really important, though. Like, if you're still wounded, you're not going to be able to share an empowering message because you might still be battling with your own victim mindedness or your own trauma. You have to really be able to heal yourself and learn those lessons, because then you can give them back to other people, right? And share them.
Yeah, yeah,
And
for sure.
so how do you help your clients who want to speak on stages? How do you help them to find that confidence in themselves? Like, do they come to you already wanting to speak on stage and build a brand, or do you really help them to develop themselves to get to the point where they have the confidence?
Both actually. It's very interesting because Sean, I love helping people put together their keynote. Like I can get their story out of them and like this is what we're going to yes, this is the keynote and this is how it's going to be written out and I love doing that. For my own, I don't know about you, but for my own talk, I'm just like, oh gosh, how am I going to open? How am I going to close my talk? What am I going to say? It's harder for myself. For some reason, I love and I really enjoy helping others come out with their keynote and developing their story and what they're going to share on stage. So, I think one thing that helps the most is it's one thing to help somebody through a talk. It's one thing to help somebody put together their talk, but it's another thing when you can give somebody a platform and that's what I do. That's the I think the biggest difference what I do for people is I give them a stage. So I put on a summit every year and I put these ladies that are in my mastermind on stage and give them time to speak on stage. So they get their time on stage. And like this year, we've got Trent Shelton, uh, Leah Valencia Key, Renee Rodriguez, along with some other amazing speakers that are coming to speak. And they will now get to say, I shared the stage with Trent Shelton. So I give them that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's really awesome of you because when you're an aspiring speaker and you're an up and comer, you're just looking for that first opportunity. You're like, how do I go about that? How do I get my first speaking engagement? I mean, a
Mm.
lot of people ask me that all the time. It really comes down to relationships, you know. But you got to get yourself in the right rooms, whether that means investing into a mentor or a mastermind. It's like, how bad do you want to be on that stage, you know? So, what would you tell somebody who wants to speak? Like, where do they start? What would some tips that you give them be for them to land their first keynote speech outside of your summit?
Oh, I would say exactly what you just said. Get in the rooms. Like there is so much power in proximity. It's all about relationships. People ask me all the time, how did you get to speak on that stage or this stage or that stage? It has been in the beginning, it was about relationships and it was about building those relationships and showing support. And so, however you can, get in the room and support your friends who are having events. And that's something that's really interesting, Sean, that I've had people that they want to come, like they want to be a speaker at my event. And I'm like, you never even bought a ticket to one of my events ever. Like, why would I have you as a speaker at my event? You've never, you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
maybe that sounds
No, I
bad.
know what you mean. Like, you don't wanna so there's 2 types of people. One that's always take, 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 and then the other person who's giving their time, their energy, and support. And I think it's a natural thing. Like, you hear the term pay to play, right? Or, when you pay attention. And what I hear is, like, people who are investing in either my mentorship or to be around me or vice versa, I'm investing my time and energy to be around them. There's gonna be this mutual bond and, like, respect that's developed because, "Hey, I'm supporting you, you're supporting me." Like, you really feel like they have your back. So when you have an event, who are you gonna think about putting on your stage? The person in left field who you never hear from just when you have an event, or the person who's around you? You know? And
Yeah,
people get so caught up in the money, you know, "Oh, I don't wanna invest," and all they're thinking about is the money. Like, think about the future life that you wanna create and the people that you wanna be around and the experiences that you wanna have. Money, like, it comes and goes, you know? And in fact, when you invest more in yourself and you're not worried about the money, you tend to make a lot more, you know? Um, I remember the first big event I got to speak at was at Ken Joslin's first event. You
oh,
spoke.
really?
Yeah, well, you spoke, Ed Milet, John Maxwell. Um, the way that transpired was, you know, I just wrote in my book. This was like 3 years ago, and I was just trying to get exposure and get my message out there to the world, and I literally messaged Brad Lee a couple times telling him my story. I wanted to get on dropping bombs and share with his audience because I respected him and what he was doing, and I saw his platform as being a really cool platform, you know? And so he invited me to Vegas, and I was out there doing dropping bombs, and I happened to bump into Ken Joslin in the hallway. We were walking
No
by each other.
way.
Yeah, Ken was out there. They had spoken at an event the night before, and they were doing, Bradley's closer school. Ken was a guest on there teaching about sales and stuff that he does and talking about just his brand and what he was building. So we bumped into each other in the hallway, and he was getting all into his fitness and his health journey back then. So he made a comment about, like, my biceps or something. We were joking in the hallway. And so after that, we started building a relationship. But this is how bad I wanted to speak on stages and get my message out there. I remember he and I spoke a couple months later, and he was doing basically, I don't know what you call it, but like up and coming speakers, if you want an opportunity to speak, you basically got to help him sell tickets to promote the event, right? And I signed a contract basically saying I was going to sell X number of tickets to promote the event, and if I didn't, I owed the money for that slot. It's like a speaker
Oh,
contract. So, but this is how bad I wanted to speak, right? It's like I was willing to do that, and I didn't care about money or if
hey,
I owed.
that's a pretty dang good system. I need to
Well, it
maybe
is because it gave a
check
guy like.
in with Ken about seeing what he's doing about.
Yeah, well, look it gave a guy like me an opportunity to be on a flyer with Ed Milet, Amberly Lago, John Maxwell, Ken Jocelyn, and this is before I was really known or building my brand. And when you get on stage, immediately you get credibility and you get exposure and you get content. And I wanted people to hear my message and my story. So I did that. I signed the contract and I ended up selling like way more tickets than was required. And then I got to come and speak at that event. So a lot of people want opportunity, Amberly, but they're not really willing to go all in and do
Yeah,
whatever it
and
takes, you
you know
know?
what, Sean? You know what? I think people think when I got into speaking, I didn't think I want to be a speaker because I want to make a lot of money. That was not my intention. And yeah, money's great. You got to, yeah, that's always a bonus if you can make some money. That wasn't my intention. But a lot of people have this intention about being a speaker because they want to make money or they want the fame. And they don't know the work that goes behind it, and they don't know how many times you speak for free until you get to your first speaking gig,
Yeah. Yeah.
consistently getting paid as a
Yeah. I
speaker.
mean, not a lot of people make a ton of money speaking. If you're one of the top entrepreneurs or speakers in the world, then you make a good amount. I mean, I'm sure you get a great speaker fee at certain events, right?
For the first time, I will sit here and admit to you that I have been speaking for like 6 years, and I am just now, for the first time in my life, getting paid consistently a speaker's fee.
Yeah, and it takes time, right? You have to build up your brand. You have to be you have to reach a certain level where like it makes sense for whoever's putting on the event. And what they're looking for is they want to hire you to deliver a valuable message to impact their audience, but also to help them sell tickets. So like you're right, once you reach that certain level of status, then it makes sense. But people don't realize that. A lot of the events that speakers are going to, they're speaking for free, right? Because it's kind of a win-win. You get to get exposure, practice, build your brand, and then you're helping out the event coordinator. But I mean, I've heard you speak live, and you're one of the best speakers I've ever heard. Like you tell
Oh,
your story in such a great way. And the thing I love about when you speak is you're vulnerable, but then there's always a lesson and insight that the audience can instantly take and apply to their life. And that's what I love. So I was just at an event this last week in Oregon. Bradley, the Muscle, Keaton was speaking, myself, Victor Rancor. It was a business event. But the reason I love speaking is not for money or social media clout. It's for the messages that I'll get after the conversations I have there from the attendees. Like I got so many cool messages from people who said they could resonate with my story or my message or who have battled with mental health or addiction. And like you, I want to be vulnerable so that we build trust with people and they can relate to us. But then I want to share how I changed. What was that insight or that perspective shift that helped me to change my thinking or my habits? Because I want them to take that lesson and apply it in their life as well.
yeah, yeah. Well, you are an incredible speaker. I loved hearing your message when we spoke together. We shared the stage at Ken's event.
Yeah, we were doing push-ups in the green room. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was actually nervous for that speaking engagement, because I knew there was a lot of it was one of my first bigger stages and there was a lot of people there and I want to do a good job. I think if you're not nervous a little bit, like
I
do you
get
really
nervous every single time.
yeah, like do you really if you're not nervous, do you really care? Like is it that important to you? You know? The nerves are what help you perform at a more elite level too.
Oh, yeah, I'm nervous every single time before I speak, and if I wasn't, I'd be like, "Okay, am I dead? What's going on? What is going on here? Something must
Yeah.
be wrong if I'm not nervous."
Yeah.
Yeah. I get
What,
nervous every single
who
time.
who are your favorite speakers right now that you've heard?
Um, I would say my absolute favorite speakers, John Gordon. I love John Gordon. Actually, he's written the foreword for my new book.
Wow,
I
wow.
love him. Um, which it was crazy, crazy, crazy to actually have your favorite author say yes to writing the foreword for your book. So he is somebody that I admire. I love John Gordon. He is a real professional speaker. I will never forget. So I was staying. So his wife Catherine and I are really good friends, and I was staying with them at their house. And kind of crazy to wake up and have breakfast with your like idol who you like love this author and speaker. And it's like, oh, hey, there's John Gordon, and we're in our robes, and we're having coffee together. Um, And to talk about, like, I was like, "Oh, yeah, this has been a really busy year." I've been traveling every month sometimes a couple of times a month for speaking gigs. And he was like, "Oh, I travel 2 times a week."
Wow.
That's what he does as far as his speaking. So, like, when I say he's a professional, no, he has really got it down. He's got it nailed in. He's locked in. He's got it down. I also love Ed Milet.
Yeah. He's one of the
He's
best I've seen live, probably the best I've seen live.
Yeah, I love Ed. He's amazing. I love John Maxwell too.
Yeah. Have you heard Jesse Itzler speak?
Okay, can I tell you a story really quick?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Let me tell you a story. Okay. So, I was invited to speak at this event, and the host of the event was like, "Hey, you know what? We already have John Maxwell and Ed Milet speaking and Jesse Itzler, and I've already paid them to speak, so I don't have any more money to pay you." And it was just kind of the way it was handled. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I can pay them, but you're not worth it. I'll pay them, but you're not worth it. Is It was the whole feeling of the whole thing. And I was like, you know what? I wish you all the success for your event. Great. Best wishes. Good luck to you. Have a great event. I'm not going Peace out. I'm not going to be able to be a part of it. And then I was like kicking myself, like, oh my God, I really, really, really wanted to hang out with Jesse Itzler. I freaking love Jesse Itzler. Like, maybe I should have done it and done this event for free because, it's not about the money, this and that, blah, blah. It was how it made me feel my self worth. So, anyway, I said no. And literally, like a week and a half later, I get a DM from Jesse Itzler. I didn't even know he was following me. And Jesse Itzler sends me a DM saying, "Hey, Amberly, I think you're in Dallas, right? I'm going to be there for a couple of events and I'd love to see you." And I thought, oh, he's trying to sell me a ticket to his event. So I wrote back, "Send me a link for the ticket so I can buy it, buy a ticket and support you for your events." I was thinking I'm going to buy a ticket and support him. He goes, "No, no, no, no. It's not about that. I just want to hang out with you. Do you want to meet me at this conference? Or I'm also talking to the Dallas Cowboys." And I was like, oh boy, my husband will definitely not approve if I'm like doing both. So let me choose one. And I think my husband would better approve of me saying I'm going to a conference rather than hanging out with the whole Dallas Cowboys football team.
Yeah.
And so I got to hang out with Jesse Itzler. And this was just, here I turned down an event because I was like, this is not making me feel worthy. I don't feel taken care of. I don't feel like valued. I'm going to protect my peace, protect my value, and do what's best for me. And did that. And guess what? Paid off. Jesse Itzler and I were hanging out.
Yeah, that's really a cool story. I mean, he's a super unique person. When I heard him speak, I forgot what event it was at, but he was one of my favorite speakers. Like really can just you feel his passion, his energy from stage. Same with Ed Milet. Ed Milet's he's an amazing speaker. And I love going to events. I love listening to the speakers though, because I'm still always learning and growing. I think that's an important thing if you want to be successful in life is always being open-minded and curious. And I like to learn. That's why I still read books. I still like to listen to speakers and podcasts. There's always new things that we can learn and those seeds that are planted that kind of help us in life, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we were talking a little bit offline here before we started the interview about the journey of entrepreneurship and like the stress that goes into it and the challenges that people face. I mean, entrepreneurship and then raising kids and like, gosh, it's a lot, but it's also really exciting and it's fun and there's a lot of unknowns and I enjoy that aspect of it. Um, what do you see happen to people who struggle with the stress and entrepreneurship? Like, what are some things that you've found that help you on this journey? And then what are some things that you see other people struggle with that they might not be doing or implementing to help them on this journey?
Um, I would probably say that one thing that there's like a lot of stress behind is like showing up on social media, like feeling like you always have to be posting and present and in your stories instead of being present in your life. And so I think the thing that I feel comes up a lot for the clients that I work with is they feel really stressed about this pressure to post on social media and to be on social media on all the platforms from LinkedIn to TikTok to Instagram to Facebook to like all of it. Um, so I think that's a thing that I feel like people are stressed about more. And that's actually something that, like this week, I was like, yeah, I'm taking a little break. I haven't posted in like 5 days. I am not going to post. And you know what? Actually, we were just talking about Ed Milet, and I don't know if you knew this, but he's taking a break from
Yeah, that's
posting
why I asked you because I noticed you hadn't posted anything for like a year or a long time. You know,
since like March.
Yeah, if I wasn't in the space, I wouldn't even have social media. Like, it's crazy to me how much time people spend on it who aren't using it to make an impact. Or I get you want to check your family and friends on Facebook and kind of have a presence. That's okay. It's a way to connect with people. But I literally wouldn't even have social media at all if,
I didn't have it until I started my
yeah,
new career. I
I
never
mean,
had social media.
but the way I look at it, one of the things I'm most proud about this last year, Amberly, is I've gotten really good at being fully present in the moment in what I'm doing. And I think it's a skill that you learn over time. It's like you got to sharpen that part of your brain. I'm not perfect at home. That's the hardest part for most entrepreneurs, going home and turning that switch off. But
Yeah,
I've done a really good job this last year. I've noticed my kids are getting bigger. And I don't want to be that guy that's at home going, uh-huh, uh-huh. And I'm not even present when my wife's talking to me. Like
yeah,
it
yeah.
takes a lot of work and focus, but, some things that have helped me, first of all, I heard Wes Watson say this a long time ago, and it, like, really shifted my perspective around the posting. He said, "It's not about you," and I thought about that, and he goes, "Dude, if you're struggling to post online and you're worried about, this and that and this and that, you're thinking about yourself, you're being selfish." He goes, "What about the people out there that are struggling with depression or alcoholism or they're suicidal or they're going through some struggle that you've overcome?" He's like, "We owe it to them. It's our responsibility to show up and be leaders and examples for them." And I'm not saying all the time we're always going to be able to put ourselves in that perspective, but when I heard that, I was like, "Dude, that's true." Like anytime we're not wanting to post or do this and that, it's because we're worried about ourselves. We're kind of being selfish. It's a little hard for people to understand that, but when you really are thinking about other people and their struggles and you're empathizing with them, it helps to overcome that little like block sometimes that takes place. Um, and I think burnout for some people is a real thing though. If you're doing it all day, every day, you can lose that inspiration and that like excitement of why you started. I think that's important to always keep in touch with why you started, why you wanted to share these messages in the first place. And if you lose that why behind what you're doing, sometimes you can start to feel a little drained and burnt out.
Mhm. I
Um,
agree. I
y-
agree.
but the being the present part is the hardest thing, is like being able to turn it off and turn it on, being able to crush it in business and show up and do everything you got to do that day, and then go home and find that tranquil, more relaxed energy, right? That you can live in. It's not a perfect balance by any means, but for me, exercise helps a lot in my daily routines. It really helps me just to put things in perspective and show up in each part of my life accordingly.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm so grateful you brought up the point about, like, turning it off. Like, my husband, he's retired now, but he was a former lieutenant commander with the California Highway Patrol, and he never brought work home. He could easily separate that. For me, it's been harder for me to turn it off, and I've had to learn to do that, and that was actually a discussion we just had where he was like, "Could you stop talking about work? Because I love what I do, and so I just wanted to talk about it and talk about it and
Yeah.
talk about it." And yeah, you know what? Sometimes you gotta just stop, put it down, take a break.
Yeah, a couple years ago when I was like really starting to grow and build my business, I would always be so excited about the things that were happening. I got in the habit of doing that with my wife. I hope she sees this. This is funny. I'd come home after working or just being in work mode, and then I'd talk about work. And I could tell from her perspective, she's like, "Dang, dude, just like be my husband, talk about some other stuff, right?" So I did a good job of not talking about work and really like coming home and being in family mode. And the other day we were driving and something came up about a project or some cool development in my business or some like kind of milestone moment. It wasn't like a huge milestone, but it was something really cool. And I shared it with her as we were driving. She goes, "I didn't know about that. You don't even tell me about these things anymore." And like right now in my head, as you were sharing, I was laughing though, because I'm like, well, do you want me to talk about it or should I not talk about it? Right. Like, what's the balance there? And she wasn't super upset, but it's just funny because, like, as entrepreneurs, unless you're an entrepreneur and doing what we're doing, not a lot of people always understand uh, how we think, how we operate, how we tick. That's
Yeah,
why we get around other entrepreneurs because it's kind of like a storm that we're calming the storm a little bit. Like we're wired a little differently,
yeah,
and we're not always perfect. But I think that part of us allows us to do things that are much different, and maybe we elevate to new level, higher levels in life than the average person because we have that side of us. So it comes at a cost, but one thing, Amberly, I've been very cognizant of, I never wanna be that guy that's older and my kids are grown up and I regret the way I lived. Like, I never wanna be that guy. Do you gotta get going right now?
oh,
Are
yeah.
we over? Yeah. Are
No,
you over?
my husband just walked in and said, "Your Uber's here."
Okay. No, see, look at this is a perfect segue. We're talking about being an entrepreneur, the life of an entrepreneur. Amberly's going from being a guest on my podcast to her studio to go interview somebody in person. And like that's what it takes sometimes. It's nonstop. So I really appreciate you being here. If anyone wants to get in touch with Amberly, I think it's amberlylago.com, Amberly Lago Motivation on Instagram. You better go follow her. She said she hasn't posted in a while, but her content's great. She's an amazing speaker. Get her books too. her story and message is truly incredible. So I just really appreciate you being here and for this time.
Sean, you're amazing.
Hopefully we can connect
Sean,
soon too.
thank you so much for having me on your show. I mean, I felt that strong connection from the very first time I heard your story and I learned about your book and read your book. And I can't wait to have you on my podcast. So you let me know when you're coming out to Dallas so I can have you on my show sometime. And I just want to say thank you so, so much for the opportunity to be on your show. I think with your unstoppable and the true grit and grace, and we just like I said, you're my brother from another mother.
That's right. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Amberly. I'll look forward to seeing you soon and go crush your in person interview right now. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're a true inspiration for us all.
Thank you so much, and let me know when you're going to be in Dallas so I can have you on my show.
I will. Thank
Thank
you.
you, thank you.